another episode in 2025. This is the third episode of 2025, our 14th episode. I'm going to keep trying until I forget. Yeah, we got an awesome guest today. This is going to be a fun time. Thank you to everyone who's been coming out and listening to us. Because I again, we say it every time, but I didn't know if this had an audience. I just know I've been talking to a lot of awesome people, and I want to bring these awesome conversations about footwear to the masses. I also, like I said, we're going to have more of an online presence. The reels have been solid and passed around, and I think little nuggets of knowledge have been, disseminated or whatever. We're just having fun, and I think we're getting better at it, which is all you can hope for from two guys just making a podcast with literally no experience doing any of this. I think there's something here, so we're here. We're gonna keep going. I hope everyone enjoyed Footwear 101. I look back and I thought maybe that was a little harsh, but like some of it's like, but like if we're gonna jump into like almost like I want to read like a job description like straight up on air and like break it down in a way that's like some of that, I feel like some of those job descriptions might be a little fluffy, but some of it's like the meat and potatoes of footwear design. And so yeah, we'll get into that. I don't want to waste any time because we got Lee Sackett on today. Lee and I never worked together officially. We actually, I think that we were on the same project for about like 3 hours.
Wow.
Before the Exhilarate went through many rounds of people.
It was 3
including
hours.
myself. Yeah.
Let me just say for the listeners, some of the best hours I've ever spent.
Well, there's
3 great
no way
hours.
that's true.
I think I had been in the role 20, 30 minutes before I was with you on that project. So
yeah,
maybe for the better.
It was what a wild ride. Anyway, so we haven't actually worked together, but Lee is one of those guys. Like I watched him when he first came to Brooks, and I just saw him grow. His presentations have always been top notch. So when I really thought about how are we going to capture the PLM role, the product line manager role, on this podcast, and how do we want to explore it? Lee's not going to be the only product line manager that we talk to, but I wanted to bring him on because I feel like he would do a good job at setting the standard. I think anyway, just and what this role's all about, and I think just so everyone knows, like it's part of Footwear 101, but I also want everyone to know that Lee's a guest and this is his episode as well. So I don't want there's going to be some crossover in all of this, but when I'm saying we want to define the terms, I want people to know, what the different roles are doing and why they're doing it. And I want to hear it from the mouth of people of the role. Colin and I tried to explain the development role, and that was 6 episodes ago, and I didn't have guests lined up. Now I'm figuring it out, and now I can have developers speak to it. I just would rather not. And I think one thing Lee and I were talking to before we kicked off the episode was I think it behooves all of the footwear designers to kind of dive into the other roles and understand how they are perceiving themselves, and also how they're perceiving us. It kind of goes back and forth, but I think if you want to be a good footwear designer, you need to understand all parts of the body, like the body collective. And so, I haven't done this in a while either. So I expect that I will learn today a little bit more about the product line manager role. I want to, and uh, Lee has always given me those, those bright spots of knowledge, those hard hitters, the heavy hitters I'm looking for. And so I think this is going to be great. But first, I think we need to introduce the man. Yeah, like I said, like I've always wanted to work with Lee, never got the chance to. But he is he's doing great. And I didn't know this, but I was kind of LinkedIn stalking Lee, and something that I think is incredible about Brooks, and probably about every like true running brand, is there are people who like run up through the ranks, like, because I think there's just a thing in running where there are people who love it so much that it's not about just slinging shoes. You can promote the brand, but then there are people who want to take it to the next level and just grow. And I think you'll hear that quite a bit in Brooks, that like people take their knowledge as being like a guru for Brooks, and then take that to the brand level and really influence things in a major way. And Lee's done a bit of that. I don't want to talk to his experience. I don't know anything about it, but knowing that is an experience that people have, understanding the product, selling the product, and then become part of the product, I think is something super cool that happens. New Balance, Asics, Saucony, all those guys, Hoka, I'm sure they all have that kind of channel where they find people who have energy and harness it. All right, Lee Sackett. Did I miss anything? Anything you want to say?
No,
I guess
that was
like
an amazing intro. You flatter me. Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
yeah.
And no, yeah, I can't think of a more all encompassing
Well,
way to start things off, man. Appreciate it.
yeah. Yeah. And I guess that kind of leads, like, how, before we get into really defining product line manager, like, how is it that you got here? Where you are today,
Sit in this chair.
with the higher energy job you have now.
Yeah. I think first off, it's important to say that I did not know this job existed
Mm,
until I started to like interact with it really closely. I think there is that list of buzzword corporate jobs that you hear, and that your friends will go to school for right out of high school.
mm,
Everyone knows what marketing is. People generally know what a project, manager is. Design, development, these are all blanket terms. But like product line manager is not something I ever came across. And I didn't know it was going to be the platform for like where I would do my life's work
mm,
until, yeah, like I said, I just kind of ran into it. The I did not go to school for this job at all. Um, and I started this career journey more late in life than I think a lot of people in the industry are used to starting their career journeys. I think, especially from a design point of view, because your guys' role is so much more technical and
mm.
so much more studied and learned from an early age. All the greatest footwear designers I know are like, yeah, dude, I've been sketching weird Jordan mock-ups since I was like 7. And I was like, okay, well,
It's
I was
familiar.
not practicing being a product line manager when I was 7. I was playing Magic the Gathering at a not at a very high level,
Yeah.
but I digress. So
I, I was
yeah,
drawing Ninja Turtles.
yeah, which
So
yeah. Yeah,
same.
exactly. Okay. All right. Yeah, you pivoted. You pivot. We
Yeah.
like it.
Yeah.
Um yeah, I went to school for history. I'm from Cleveland. Thought I wanted to be
Mm,
a teacher. Ended up really not wanting to teach at all. I just everyone went to college, and I wasn't that great of a student, and I just thought I should go to college for something. And I know that I liked reading and I liked storytelling, so I thought, why not go for history? And then I spent the next like literally 8 to 10 years of my life just being really obsessed with the outdoors and activity and the stories around these athletes that I was just obsessed with. Like I was just all throughout my 20s. I moved to Seattle because in Scott Jurek's book, he said this is where he trained on the Seven Peaks. And I left college. I didn't know what I was going to do. I was just bartending. And I said, I'll move to Seattle because that's where he trains and that's where like outdoor companies exist. And
Mm.
I'll just figure it out, you know? And so I moved out here and I worked in restaurants for a while. I worked in the marine industry for a while. Had a lot of odd jobs, but I was just obsessed with these pro athletes doing things that I didn't think were possible, whether it was marathoners. I mean, this was 2014, 2016. This is like the era of Breaking Two, Eliud
Yep.
Kipchoge, that original Nike Pro Trail team, David Laney. And there was this trail video creator named Billy Yang. And he would create these like epic worlds, these epic movies around these trail athletes and put them on YouTube. And I was just fascinated. And I'd always
Mm.
been a runner and I was so obsessed with running. And so to see these stories play out, I was like, how do I like do any of this? You know, how do I like, it's so funny. I used to talk to, I was living with one of my friends, Josh at the time, who you also know, Josh Spratt.
Yeah.
And all I would do would be talk to him about like, how do we work with these athletes? Like, how do we make their shoes? How do we shoot these videos? I could not figure it out. I could
Mm.
not figure out like what job I had to get to the next job, to get to the next job. And so eventually I think I was like literally like 28 or 29 and I had a decent I was making a living at a restaurant and it was like just a hard pill to swallow, but I was just like, okay, if I'm going to try and be in the running industry and be in the sports industry, and I knew I belonged in this industry, like I knew it just, I knew I belonged here. It's like all I knew. It's the only stuff that I just knew. I knew it so well.
Mm.
And I applied to be a part-time sales associate at the Brooks store the next day. Like it's all I knew was shoes. I knew all the anything to do with running and shoes. Like I knew it. I was just like, I just need to like get in. And
Yeah.
I was like, okay, this seems like a good way in. Let's get in. So I applied for a part-time sales position. I went to a group interview. It's the first corporate group interview I'd ever had. I wore a suit. I wore a suit.
To
And
a Brooks interview.
to a Brooks retail stores associate interview because I just didn't know. I had no experience in this world.
Wow.
And yeah, I wore a suit and I got the job and I started working at the store. And then once that happened, everything was really natural. I eventually managed the store and I was just trying to like meet people and understood what they did because I knew that I was like close to the source. I was like, okay, somebody here makes the shoes for the people that I idolize.
Yeah.
Somebody does this role and I just need to meet them and understand what they do. So I was meeting legends like Brian Bark,
Yeah.
Kenny Krotzer, all these guys that have such a tenured identity at this brand. I was running races and I was also just trying to like be great at what I did. I was trying to make sure that like every time somebody interacted with the brand, that I was just making sure to put like empathy first and not focus necessarily on climbing, but just focus on
Yeah.
doing a nice job. I think we live in this world where everything is so high stakes. There's so many people competing for only a finite amount of roles. It's really hard to not look at a ladder and focus on upward momentum. And I
Right.
was like aware of that because I was old enough to be aware of that. And I think people do what they need to do to climb the ladder, but I also think when your sole goal is upward movement, it can be see through, it can be hollow. Are you here for the right reasons? And so I just tried to come with empathy first, and yeah, and then honestly, I'd like to say that I had these like crux moments of achievement, but so much of my role, dude, is just the right place at the right time. Like I
Hmm.
just put myself in a space to shake the right hands. I was working in the store when a woman named Amy Kreutzer, who was a rep for Colorado at the time, she came in for a job interview and I helped her and we talked and we became friends. She eventually got the job she was searching for and she asked me if I wanted to be the rep for Oregon, Utah, and Idaho. And I was like, what's a rep? Like, well, I sure, like, first of all, yeah.
Yeah.
Second of all, what's a rep? Um, and then when I was a rep, that's really when I started to like cut my teeth and understand like the roles in the industry traditionally,
Yeah.
just because I was interacting with people like yourself a lot more often. Um, and I eventually started to understand that the product, like I knew I wanted to be part of the product triad: design, development, and product line management. The
Yep.
people that are kind of at the core foundation of building the product. And I knew I couldn't be a designer because I didn't have any schooling or design background. And I I think development is an amazing role that I could have excelled in. But I loved people
Mm.
and I loved taking something that is foundationally so simple, material, rubber, compound, and trying to mold it into this end product that can make people emotional and change people's lives. I was like obsessed with that idea. I was like, oh my gosh, like if we tell this story in this way, this person gets excited to go have this experience. I just thought that was like so cool. And I wanted to work with the athletes. And so I was like, okay, I got to become a product line manager. And so I was a rep for a while. I got a lot of knowledge. And I was able to just learn a lot about the sales side of the business because I had no business expertise. I had no business sense. Uh, I was generally just like, yeah, why not make cool things? That's it.
Yeah.
If it were
Yeah.
only that easy, just make cool things, sell cool things. And so I had to learn that side and the marketing side. Um, and then I remember I saw an innovation product line management role open at Brooks, and I didn't apply because I remember reading the job description and thinking that it sounded too like high end.
Yep.
So I didn't apply. And then I ran into the man who would eventually be my manager, Nikhil Jain, and I told him I was really interested in being a product line manager, and he's like, "Why didn't you apply for this job?" And I was like, "It just seems too elite." Uh,
Right.
and he immediately corrected me, and he's like, "That is an absolutely horrible reason to not apply for something that
Ooh.
you dream of doing. What do you like? What do you like? Apply for the role." And I was like,
Right.
"Okay." So I applied for the role. I spent a lot of time contacting as many people on the product triad that I knew, inside Brooks and outside Brooks, and
Yeah.
just talking to them about what they liked the most about the product line managers that they liked the most. So literally just hearing about the qualities of people that they like to work with
Right.
and then honestly emulating those qualities. Like I was just like, okay, I don't know what it takes to do this role good, so I'm just gonna fake it. I'm just gonna do what these other people say is good. And I got the role. And then we worked together for 3 hours, three
Yep.
hours that I'll never forget.
Yeah.
Um, and then,
I'll never forget. It was because we were up in the morning. It was like pandemic at
yeah,
peak, and we were on like calls at like 6 a.m. Like,
dude,
and I was like, why are we doing this? And
dude, that was
uh,
the first realized that when I was a rep, I was a make your own schedule job. So
yeah,
to be on a call with the Asia team at six,
yeah,
we were on a call with the Asia team and developers on the East Coast. And I
yep,
remember my girlfriend coming in the room being like, is this like your role? And I remember like turning my camera off and going on mute and being like, I don't know. I don't even know what this role is. But I know that if somebody puts a meeting on my calendar for 6:30, I will attend. I will
yeah,
attend.
yeah,
um, yeah, and then from there, eventually, I just was really focused on the athlete, really focused on the athlete, really focused on the
yep,
athlete, and I was able to um, kind of start being the product line manager for the Brooks racing product, marathon shoes and spikes and trail shoes, and that program was not the main focus of that brand at the time. and so our product just it wasn't what it needed to be. Not from a sales perspective, but it wasn't it just wasn't giving the athlete the performance advantage that the other brand
Right.
shoes were. And I think that that was always just like my core value. My core value was just give every athlete that runs for this company the exact same performance advantage when they toe the line so they can feed their families. That's like what I was just obsessed with.
Hmm.
And then I was able to like kind of take ownership of that category, and then I'm here. I'm here, still doing it.
Yeah.
Thanks for letting me ramble. I almost need to like
No.
jog my own memory of like what the last 8 years looked like.
I hope it's good. Like, and I also, oh man, just to the listeners, all, maybe 100 that's out there right now, 120, 40, somewhere in that range. I hope you just got a sense of like the passion again. I think I've been like kind of seeing that like over and over again. I don't know if I project that like in my my aura of like designer. Like I don't know if I project like the level of passion for like the design. I don't know, like I love it, right? Like, and I do. I have other priorities in my life. Some might even, you might say, be higher than my footwear design thing, but at the same time, like the passion at which you just spoke, like I was like, I'm in. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm in. Um, and that's in a sense, it's like how I felt too. Is like, it really felt like I went into industrial design, and I'm like, I don't know if like gadgets, it's like what I want to do. Like, and I had drawn shoes in the past, and like, but once I found like that, there's like a footwear, there's a chance for me to make it into a wearable, like into, and you said it too, like rubber compound upper. Like once I like realized that I could do this, like that was part of my degree. Like I had fell butt backwards into like where I want to go. I was like, oh my gosh. And once it just like all clicked, like it was footwear all day, like I'm buying my own lasts. I'm like, okay,
You
like,
got obsessed.
yeah, it's like, I'm in it. Like, like who contacts Jones Inviting and says,
Yeah.
hey, I got about $500. Can I get like a last or something? Like, can I get something sent to me? I don't need a production run of last. I just need like one. Like,
Yeah.
and they were like, yeah, like
I just
what
need
you need
one
yeah,
last.
like I just need like one. I need something that I can wrap some fabric around and
Yeah.
like figure out this whole thing. Um, but yeah, just as you were talking, it's like, you know, you're like, I want to be a part of this, and you don't know how, but like, I think that's part of, finding jobs like this is like you're just taking risks on risks, and you're not afraid to take risks. Like,
Mm.
um, and I think another part of it is, that you're talking to people. Actually, it's crazy to hear that like, did I not brush shoulders with you when you were in the Trailhead store? Like, man, I mean, I didn't
Maybe
go in there all that often, but man, you were in there.
I was in there.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. Yeah, one thing that's like kind of ringing is like, what made you decide to go to the rep side? Like, what was the thing? Like, how did that like? Because like when you're in the Trailhead, like you're already like you're in
Yeah.
HQ essentially. Like what takes you out of like there and takes you um out into like almost the field, right? Like,
Yeah. No, I mean, you hit on a conversation that I had with a couple people like closed doors at that time, which was do you're in the place where the people that know how to do what you want to do, you're right there. Why would you leave that place? And I think I was at a point in my life where I there was so much travel involved. Like I was the rep for 3 states, and they were like
Yep.
bad. They were like badass states. They weren't the like boring states. They were cool states.
Right.
And
A lot of running happening.
yeah, there was yeah Oregon, Utah, Idaho. And at that point in my life, I was just like obsessed with like the trail athlete.
Yeah.
And I think half of it was I'm an opportunist, and I was just like, why would I be offered this? Why would the universe put me in a space where this would get offered to me? And then to
Yep.
shut that door, dude, it's like everyone has like a preconceived notion of like the trajectory they will take.
Yeah.
And I think at that point, I was just open to saying that like maybe my idea of my perceived trajectory is wrong. And to turn down this amazing opportunity just because it might not make sense, it just felt wrong. And I decided to take it. And there was certainly moments where I regretted it because like, I went from literally being so close to the people that understood everything, and then I felt, you're a little bit isolated. I was the only Brooks employee that lived 5 miles from Nike, Adi, UA,
Yep.
Hoka. You know what I mean? Like you're isolated.
Man.
Um, but the benefits were there's no position that puts you in front of so many different runners and consumers and people using the product than that role. Like I
Hmm.
was gone 2 weeks out of every month, flying to these cities, spending time in running shops, talking about product, specifically talking about product that was not the product that the brand I worked for made.
Right.
Simply trying to have non-biased conversations around just like when 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 these people are experiencing footwear, whether it be basketball or running or cleated or spikes or anything, there is an experience that they're having that they don't know how to communicate. We know how to communicate it because we're so versed in this jargon. Like we take
Right.
all these little words and we exacerbate them and we blow them up and put them on briefs and things like this. But um, random people where the running industry is not in their peripheral, they don't. It's very difficult to explain how they feel when they're in shoes. And I hadn't experienced that. And so being able to just spend so much time in front of them, learning how to like translate that material and like figure out not just how they felt in a product like physically, but
Hmm.
how they felt emotionally about it when something good happened and when something bad happened. Uh, I was never going to get that in the building, you know. I was
Right.
only going to get that in that position, and so yeah, it was you know there were certainly some things I missed out on, but like the learning was
Yeah.
unparalleled, man, unparalleled.
Right. Did you have people with you, or is it usually just you in the store?
It's just solo.
That's
It's just solo. Dude,
awesome.
there was so many. I'll never forget it, man. Like we would just I had my little car and I would drive. I was in Portland and I would drive to Boise. And the drive from Portland to Boise traditionally is not sick. It's
Yeah.
just brown, just the color brown. And dude, I
Yep.
just used to rail. I remember so every rep, if you're a rep for a company,
Yeah.
you'll have a parallel sales rep, like kind of like your liaison, the guy that writes the orders. You kind
Yep.
of sell the shoes through. The sales rep will kind of make sure the shoes get in the door of the store. And it's like a really integral relationship where you two should be working well together and communicating. I love my sales rep. There's a dude named Brent, and
Yeah.
he knew what I was getting into way before I knew what I was getting into. And so we met. Great dude, been in the industry like 30 years, which is like classic sales rep. Like they've all been in the industry 30 years.
Yep. Yep.
And he just sets this huge brown box down on my passenger seat in my car. And he's like, here you go. And it's just like 50 books on tape, like all like grocery store adventure pulp, like James Patterson, like it would be called like uh Adventure in the Rainforest or like Hijack on the USS Clifton. And so, dude, I would just drive 7 hours to Boise and rail
Yeah.
adventure novels. And so
Oh man.
I would get to Boise fired up. I'd be like, dude, I
Yeah.
just read five of the worst books on the planet Earth. Like, yeah, let's talk about running shoes. But it was sick.
Yeah.
It's funny. I think when I was doing it, I was mad. I was like, what am I
Yeah.
doing? But now I can think fondly about it. Positive.
Yeah. Man, get into classic literature, or did you just take
It's
the old stuff?
it's funny. I did do classics, but all right, this is yeah. I mean, I hope your listeners are interested in
Hey.
audiobooks because I do have an insight. A lot of the
Yeah.
classics are shorter volumes. So like, unless you're doing Dostoevsky, unless you're doing like War and Peace, like these
Yeah.
epic volumes, if I read like East of Eden or As I Lay Dying,
Yeah.
I mean, dog, that's 130 pages. That's an hour of your time. I need, bro, dude, I need romance. Like, I need 700 pages because we're trying to get from Coeur d'Alene
Yeah.
to Provo, Utah. And you know what I'm saying? And the classics ain't doing it.
Yeah.
I need drama. I need drama. So did I consume a lot? Yes, but
That's amazing.
yeah, it was good. It was good.
Yeah, I mean, I almost made that drive this last weekend for a wedding, and I was like, "Oh, I don't think I'm gonna do it." Like,
It's a lot. You gotta be really motivated.
yeah, and I was very not motivated. It turned out being okay. Like, my wife had already flown to the place, and I was like, maybe I should drive because I don't want to do like late ticket prices. And I quickly thought, well, I do like my couch, and I do like, and I worked on this podcast, and I hung out, and it was fine. I got some donuts, and you're like, yeah,
Treat yourself.
that's all good.
You need a little weekend.
I don't need 17 degrees and
No.
snow on the ground.
The barren, cold wasteland.
Oh
like
yeah.
Arctic Mad Max setting.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Couch is
Oh
nicer.
man.
Couch is nicer. Hey, bless your wife's heart though. She did the journey for both of you.
That's right.
I like that. We like that.
It's good. Worked out.
Sharing responsibilities.
Yeah. She gave me a report back, and I was happy. Felt like I was there.
Incredible.
But no, that's hilarious. And like, I think you're right, because one thing that happened that was like, and I joke about this. I've joked about it a couple times on the podcast. I hope everyone is fine with this. But like, there was a point at which, like, I was at Brooks, and I was kind of checking out, and but something that kind of like roped me back in a little bit was I went to Super Jock, and I just like sat in that store for like 3 hours and just like watched people come in and buy shoes and how they interacted. Like, take all of like, it's hard. I think it's also really hard. Like, once you get in, it's hard to become not just not so ingrained. Like, you get the fluff in there, and you get what's happening on the inside of the walls, and you get the everyday, it's the world that's happening all the time. And like, and then you go to a place like that where people are like, they're walking their dog and they just want to stop in and look at some shoes, and like, and then you realize they don't pick yours. And then or some lady will say like, I don't like that mesh. And you'll be like, you get it, like,
yeah,
you'll hear it, like, or like, oh man, like they'll inevitably, I saw them put a couple of our shoes on and like walk around. They're like, oh, that just feels terrible. And you're like, man, like all that,
yeah,
like all that work just poof, like gone in a second. And realizing how the consumer saw and I don't want to say consumer, I want to say customer, I want to say person, like saw our product on the wall versus everyone else's wall, or everyone else's product was like there's something about it that relit some fire under me to be like, you know what? I can design a better shoe than these guys. and
Right though?
but there was a purity. There was a purity there. Like to just someone not attached looking at product and having that experience. And I think, yeah, like you could have probably made that jump from, inside of the trailhead to your role. Like that could have easily been a line, right? But I think you're, which is funny because I thought it wouldn't be such a deep answer when I asked you the question. I was like, man, like that is a really, like, one, like, yeah, accepting that, like, I've thought this more and more is like when you get a job like handed to you in that sort of way, I think you're right to like step back and question, like, why would I not do this? Like because there's not many situations where that's going to be presented to you.
Absolutely, dude.
It's like, that's how I felt when I was like applying for jobs like this time around, and even the first time around. Like Brooks was so fast and so like interested in me, and I was like, oh, like this is interesting. Like I don't think I've had this before. And then the second time around, like when you see like an offer letter come across the table, you're like, man, like someone's like interested in this. It's kind of like, well, what do I do with this? Like not many, like you're one in probably 1,000 people, like,
dude, that's
and
not
you're
an
getting this
over-exaggeration.
thing.
That's not an over-exaggeration.
Yeah. Anyway, so you're saying those things and it's really just ringing so many bells, like the learning, just as a person, what you do with like what life kind of brings, even if it's not that linear travel. It's great stuff.
Or just puts in front of you,
Yeah.
Like we all have it. It's easy to turn down opportunities, especially if you feel like you're not in the right stage of your life to embark on something different. And it's like I've absolutely turned down more than I've taken, because that's just the human experience. But you said something though that I think wrapped it up so nice, which is just like how pure the interaction is, especially when you're in that environment. Where I think one thing that I always recommend to people to do if they're feeling stagnant or jaded anyway is like go into a space where the people that are interacting with the thing that you spent your life making owe you absolutely nothing. Like that person owes you absolutely nothing. And I like, what an amazing, we don't often get that type of feedback that is so pure, like you said, pure. And it's, bureaucracy is just a necessary evil of industry. But when we let it cloud our view of how a person actually like has an emotional response to our product, I feel like that's when we're able to detach and our view of what the person thinks and feels and the relationship that they have with our products. If you forget about that, like if you forget that they don't owe you anything, your view becomes disrupted. And then it's easy to fall into the bureaucracy and the jargon and this corporate rotation and calendars and triads. But yeah, all it takes is just going into Fleet Feet and hearing somebody say that the shoe feels bad.
Yep.
And then you're just like, okay, well.
Yeah. But they're like, this one feels much more cushioned than this one. And you're like, oh.
And you just want to yell. You want to be like, no, it doesn't.
Yeah.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah. It's not a chance that's true.
Yeah.
Like, not a chance.
Yeah.
Man. Well, that's awesome. That is already like, man, that's good stuff. Like, it's got my mind thinking, Okay. I think it's a good point to like transition. I really like your story. Obviously you're coming at it with fire and I love it. That's just that's man, just makes me love doing this even more.
Yeah, this is fun. Good
So
chat.
all right. I want to ask you something, and just for everyone out there, I have not asked him this question already. It's going to sound rehearsed, but we have not had this interaction.
I swear, no interaction.
Yeah, part of uh, this this whole thing we're trying to do is I want to define
Mm.
like the terms, right? And I think if you're already this deep in the episode, you already know Lee's probably the guy to do it, at least to kind of kick it off. How do you define what you do? Like, what is the definition of product line manager?
Damn. It is a question. So whether you're in the sportswear industry or not, or any product industry, uh, then you know that question gets asked a lot
Mm,
because it's such a variable, fluid position. It's the answer sucks. The the answer sucks because you want this light bulb moment. And so while Jake did not ask me, we have not had an interaction where Jake asked me a
yeah.
question. Uh, but I have thought about this a ton because whenever I see someone that I haven't seen in years and they ask me what I do, and I say I'm a product line manager, and they go, "What's that?" I hate having a stupid answer.
Yeah.
So I have thought about this a lot, and I think if I'm going to define it, the best way for me to define it is through an analogy, unfortunately. And I think that the product line manager is best described as being the conductor of an orchestra, not in a hierarchical sense of they're in charge of anybody or
Mm,
they're the leader of the orchestra per se, but in the actual like tangible function of what a conductor does. So conductor's job is to interpret the score, the piece of music, and then interpret that feeling and emotion, and then help the actual players and the musicians to play the score in harmony to best project the original motive of the person, the composer of the score.
right.
And so if you think of the person, in my case, the runner, as the composer of the score, and the score being what they want, the shoe that they want, it is my job to translate that feeling into something that all the musicians can digest. Now, I don't play any instrument really well. Not a
Mm,
great designer, not a great developer. I'm not a great product marketer. I'm not a great marketer. I'm a nightmarish salesman. And I'm kind of a, bad strategist. But
right.
what I am really good at is communication. That's what I'm really good at. And that is the essence of what a product line manager does is you translate how this person wants to feel differently for every different function in the organization that you're talking to, and you get them to work together, and that is the essence of the role. You're getting 15 different people who need to hear 15 different things. You're getting them to make a singular entity.
Mm,
um, and so what that looks like, if I can transition to like explaining
yeah.
kind of what this job does,
Which I
is
think the analogy is
it's
fantastic, by the way.
it's not bad, right? I've thought about that. It's the only like parallel I can think of, and it's um the idea behind it is like I everything like my job starts. Take the pro athlete. Like I could go to a pro athlete and I will just talk to them for a long time. Like we'll just sit down and have conversations around like how their body's feeling in racing shoes, how their body's feeling in no shoes, like when they're walking around their house barefoot, what they feel like in the rest of the body when they're healthy. Like I rarely focus on what they feel like in the shoe because I'm uninterested in that. Because if they feel good in the shoe, that doesn't help me solve problems. So I have a lot of conversations, and then I'll pick out some like really gleaming moments that I think are really important from that conversation, and I will take those and then honestly any viewer any listener can do this. I just go on Miro and I make a Miro board, which is like a digital whiteboard,
Yep.
and I will start to put images to the story that I'm trying to translate based on the function I'm trying to translate it to. So the first thing I'll do is I'll say like, okay, how do I want the developer to see this from like a materialization point of view? Like what is,
Mm-hmm.
if somebody says, I want a bouncy ride, it's like, okay, so like, what is that? I don't want to do their job for them because that's a bad PLM.
Mm.
I want to, they're great at their job. So how do I translate this information to like give them that light bulb moment? And maybe it's pictures of leather, right?
Right.
Maybe it's pictures of snow melting on asphalt because that's like the light tensile difference somebody wants to feel in a really lightweight shoe. You know what I mean?
Mm.
When it comes to design, it's like that same thing. It's like I'm not a designer, so I'm not going to tell somebody that the shoe needs to be sculpted because that's not. I don't know that that's the answer. There's this great developer I work with named John Geisberg, and he and I have a great connection where I can say words to him and talk to the designer about where the runner wants to feel the different areas of displacement, and then in his brain he can say, okay, we need to sculpt the lateral forefoot. We need to have a depression 14 millimeters off the medial side because Lee said this person has a weight shift when they're going heel to toe.
Mm.
And then, the product starts to get created and then the job switches again, right? Like I'm having these same conversations with product marketing. How do we express, like, okay, we made this product based on, we're playing the score based on what the consumer wants to hear. How do we then sell it back to them? What words do we want to use? Because what are the words that they use in the first place, and then I'll go to sales and then talk about, the not very fun stuff, margin, FOB,
Right.
things that are integral though to the organization. You talk to merchandising, you talk to color, you talk to trend, and you do that globally. You talk to Europe, and you talk to Asia, and you're having all these conversations. You're having all these conversations at the same time. And any given day, you're always talking to all these functions and making sure that all of the chess pieces move up the board at the same cadence. And if you do it good, the music gets played back in a beautiful way. And you have like a product that isn't just like any great designer can design a great product. Like, especially if you stay out of their way, right?
Yeah.
Like if you put a great designer in a silo, they will make something beautiful. But we live in this world where there's so many different foundational necessities that product has to go through to just get to the consumer's doorstep. And it's my job to make sure that all of those advance at a proper cadence so John's work gets to be displayed to the runner like he wants it to be. And so a lot of times this role, product line management, gets talked about in a very like a common thread between a lot of us is that we're passionate, we communicate well, and we talk well. And maybe that's true, maybe it's not true.
Right.
But you see the best parts of this role, right? Like you see me give a presentation, you say, oh man, that guy's job looks sick as hell. He just gets up there and makes like a dumbass PowerPoint with weird animations and we pay him.
Yeah.
But the meat of the job is all of these different channels of communication and making sure that your translations are perfect. Because if they're not, then the thing that pays the price is ultimately the runner in the store that says the shoe doesn't feel good.
Right.
And then you didn't translate it right. So that was long-winded.
No.
I do hope that like that's what I think about when I think about being a product line manager.
Right. I don't think it was long at all. Like I almost was like, go on. go on. Me and answers one of the questions is that you talk I was like, I was keying in because I was like, yeah, each almost it's almost like each function has their own different instrument almost, you know, and then like
Absolutely.
you can't present like percussion like the violin music. You can't, and you can't expect that to like, I mean, in some terms, like we might understand a little bit of what that music is in some sense, but like I'm never going to be able to like, you know, play it, translate it,
You won't play it back.
understand it.
You won't play it back to me, right?
Yeah.
Like that's the other thing is like you have to know what they want to hear to produce their best work, you know,
Right.
and so it does take knowing a little bit about what everybody does. It does, you know, you have to be fluid and listen to people and understand their
Right.
role. Because if I talk to John Geisbert, that designer, like I talk to a guy in sales, John's going to tell me to leave the room.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I'm
Oh, he won't
saying?
tell you to leave the
No,
room.
he won't. No, he won't. But he'll give me the like, yeah, for sure, bro.
Yeah. Like, okay. Well, that was
Yeah,
weird. He'd be
yeah,
like, did you hear what he just said to me? That was odd.
yeah, exactly,
And
exactly.
then no, but in a serious sense, like no progress will be made.
Yeah,
Like
it'll just spin.
it'll be out in one ear and out the other, kind of a thing. Like, um, man, that's fascinating. Um, so then, like, um, how is it that you like stay fresh? Like, how are you? We're talking about music. We're talking about how that translates. The consumer is playing a song, you're hearing it and trying to pass it through. Like, if I just did I just butcher the analogy?
Not
I'm
at
like, was that
all.
right?
No, I think you
Consumer
nailed
plays
it.
music, you hear music,
Yeah,
you're expressing like it's
translating.
almost like the consumer is saying, I want to hear a song that sounds like this. And you're like,
That was it.
okay. Like,
Yeah,
I think
yeah,
I get it. I hear drums and I hear, you know, I hear guitar, I hear this. Let me try my best to like arrange the people in
yeah.
such a way that it happens.
They play it back. Yeah. It no, that was
Yeah.
perfect. That was perfect.
So yeah, I guess how often are you? I know you're working with athletes. You talked a little bit about this. Like, is it as easy as talking to people? Is it as easy as I don't know the answer to this. So is it as easy as going online and watching meta endurance or you know believe in the run and you know like
Yeah.
picking out what they're saying, or is it are you spending time boots on the ground? Like what like in essence it's like how do you do it, you know?
I, I that's a great question. I I first and foremost, I try and not consume I try to not consume like any running content
Mm,
outside of my personal interest in it. Because I think that then you start to get disconnected with the person writing the score
mm,
because Meta Endurance and Ginger Runner and Believe in the Run, they do a great job after the fact. Like I'll watch
right.
them, like when they review a shoe, of course I'll watch it because I want to hear people's feedback on our product, especially people that are knowledgeable about the product. But when you do that, it's so easy to start to think that the words they're using, the experiences they're having, and the way they're talking about the product is like normal and natural when
Mm,
they're just another we're all part of the same industry talking in the exact same way. A lot of my like a lot of if you know just to stay fresh, I I just do a lot of reading and a lot of listening. I mean like I'll say exactly what it is. I try and make sure I'm very, very current on how young people are talking about their lives. Nothing to do with
mm,
running, like literally nothing to do with running. Focusing on how kids in college at like hubs, LA, New York, Seattle, Miami,
Sorry, my
Austin.
camera's not plugged. Was
Oh
not
no,
plugged
you're
in at
good.
all.
You're
Thank
good.
God.
Yeah, I just focus on how young people are talking, the
Right.
words that they use to explain, what they're wearing, what they're eating, how they're feeling. I read a lot of newsletters from a lot of people who are good at their jobs,
Yeah.
writing about young people, and then I try and just consume as much of like these regular people doing regular things. I try and consume as much of their daily lives as I possibly can. So when it comes time to talk to them, it's easier for me to translate,
Hmm.
what they want. Because a lot of the times, I think about it this way too. It's so it's very rare that a person like if you and I are like buying a loaf of bread, um, because we don't know how to bake loaves of bread or understand like the chemical reactions that happen in bread. We're
Yeah.
only going to use like our words to explain what bread we want. And like for all you and I know, we're choosing the wrong bread. Like the
Yeah.
greatest loaf of bread in the world, you and I haven't tasted because we simply haven't explained that we want it. And that
Yeah.
sucks. And so my hope is like if I just listen hard enough and read the most stuff, then I can help unlock that for somebody.
Right.
A lot of newsletters. Not a sexy answer. Just do a lot of
Yeah.
reading. A lot of podcast
Newsletters is
listening.
like newsletters. It makes me,
Newsletters, podcasts. Yeah.
yeah, like newsletters makes me think like email lists, like you're
Dude,
subscribed.
dude, I'm subscribed. Dude, it's actually if I were to give one cheat code to like the aspiring product line manager,
Yeah.
I would just say like as far as like how to stay fresh, just make sure you never take your eye off what skateboarders are doing. Like I think skating as a cultural attaché, as a cultural foundation, I think skating has ruled everything for a very long time. I think
Okay.
all the trends that we see in footwear and clothing and how people talk and how people act and where we're seeing like micro trends and macro trends in today's current day and age, I think it all stems from skating. Um, so I would literally tell a young PLM, it's fine that if you know everything about skating or if you know nothing about skating, it's okay.
Right.
Just start listening and diving in, and you will have an opinion for sure. That's my only nugget I can offer.
Yeah. What? Where did that come from? Like, how is that? I'm like, what are you, what are you talking about? Like, is that true? Like, I'm
Well, I
sitting here
mean,
like,
think about it this way. It's like it's the only it's the only activity you can do that combines like an innate athleticism and an innate need to take risks
right.
without any of the boundaries of organized sports. So when a kid is in high school and plays basketball, he's on a basketball court that has lines. There's inbounds and out of bounds. There's rules that have been around for 175 years about how
Yeah.
to play basketball. And it's about how does he express himself in that environment. And that's great. That's great. Skating is so unattached and so unconformist to any rule set. You are around your friends and you're expressing yourselves as a group of individuals without any rules. No one's telling you what to do. And so your expression through skating, through how you dress, through the music you
Mm,
listen to is just so pure and unbiased by a rule set that's pressed on you.
yeah.
I just think it's the most free as far as what youth can do, right? Like what a 16-year-old kid has access to. I
Right.
think if you watch these people express themselves in this space, you see like the most pure form of the next generation's like cultural equivalent. Like you're going to see what the next trends they attach to. When you
Right.
focus on groups of kids skating, you get to see these micro trends because they don't care about, you know, the rules that millennials push on them. They don't need to wear pastels. They can wear
Yeah.
chrome. You know what I mean? They
Yeah.
don't they can do whatever they want because there's no rules. And I just that space, I just haven't found a space that exhibits it that like that. You know?
Right. There's like
No,
nothing. There's no uniform. There's
no,
no. Uh.
you don't have to look a certain way.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Eh,
You don't have to wear dry fit.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Well, it's like yeah. There's and there's not a sponsored. You know, we're a Nike school. We're an Adidas school. We're a
Yeah,
whatever Reebok, Under Armour. Yeah, we got to wear this. There's something interesting that you're saying is like when you take off all of the like how does someone express themselves when you remove all the stuff.
yeah.
Um, that's interesting. I was like not on board for a second. Like
I like
I don't know
that.
if I'm I don't know if I'm ever gonna listen to a skating podcast. I have a
Luckily,
friend.
you don't have to. You don't have to.
Yeah. Well, I'm like
PLMs
I
have
don't.
to.
Yeah, the PLMs need to get on board. Man. All right.
Another thing too. Another thing too is when it comes to like youth sports and spend, organized sports are an easy way to make friends and spend time with your friends. Like we all know
Yeah.
that. It's everybody. You're looking for identity in high school, and you find it through your friendships, and then whatever that group does, you're going to do it too. Maybe it's
Right.
Magic the Gathering, maybe it's baseball, maybe it's skating.
Right.
But there is this, with the other organized sports, when you're in high school, you are thinking, am I good enough to go to college? Right. Like, and so that of course plays into your actions. When you're doing sports or something that can translate to a career or to wealth or to knowledge, the stakes become higher.
Yeah.
And skating is interesting to me because it doesn't have any stakes. Like, yeah, you can be a pro skater. Fine.
Yeah.
That's such a one in a million thing. It's rare to find something with no stakes.
Yeah. That, yeah. Yeah. It's not as much money passing through. Like that is
At least
interesting. That is.
to the athlete hands. I
Yeah.
don't think there's not as much money passing through the athlete hands, but the permeation of the decision that the kids who skate make and how that
Yeah.
affects culture. There's a
Yeah.
lot of money. There's a lot of money. I mean, yeah. Someone's getting paid, dog.
Yeah.
Someone's getting paid.
That's awesome. Yeah. Man, I am probably for the first time on the show, kind of like lost in like thinking about that. Huh.
I don't.
That's
I know. I probably took us off script,
no.
but
I'm like,
that's what
okay.
I like. That's just what I that's what I do. It's who I look
Yeah.
at to figure out what I need to figure out. So
Right. Right.
maybe it's a fool's errand, but
Yeah.
they keep paying me.
Yeah. Well,
I'm doing
you're
okay.
doing it. Um, whatever's happening is it's great.
I'm doing it.
I guess like then, so all these questions like are all about finding like gaps. Like I think that's like the thing that Colin wanted me to kind of get at was like how are you finding like how are you hearing people and finding like that's this product without like destroying one product over here, destroying one product over there. I mean, the other thing I want to ask, like, so maybe that's one thing. The other thing I want to ask is like you've reached where you want to be. You've talked to athletes. Like, how, like, is it one and the same? Like, how you're getting insights and distilling them? Like, is an athlete and just general release, like running product, are they like anyway like meeting at a head, like, or the insights that you're gaining from the non-athlete world, like are they separate, distinct in any way? And yeah, and then how do you distill that? You know, like, um, is that even a question? I
Yeah.
don't know.
No, 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 no. That's a really good question. I mean, I wish they were closer, but it's very different feedback because it's coming from a space of the athlete's relationship with the product is so much different because it is the tool they use to pay their bills.
Yeah,
Ultimately, it's not a sexy answer, but
it is.
if you run good, you get paid good, and if you run
Yeah,
bad, it might mean you need to find a different job.
yeah,
So the feedback that they give, it is much more. Now, I'm not saying that they're good at giving feedback because it's not their job to be good at giving feedback, but
right.
if but it is their job to try and express what is right and what is wrong.
Mm,
And so it is the difference between the athlete feedback and like the general consumer feedback is with the pro, there's a lot of it. They we said earlier like the runner doesn't owe you anything. The athlete doesn't owe me anything except how they feel. They absolutely owe me and they owe themselves as many words as they can muster about something. Because
mm,
if we can crack it, then that might mean their career gets to be longer. And we can help them be on the podium for a longer time, feed their families. Like there's we both have skin in the game, you know?
yeah,
The general consumer, it's just such a different distillation process because people don't because they don't have those high stakes. It's very difficult for people to like articulate what they don't know. And I
mm,
think that's probably where like the future of this industry um, starts to be locked behind closed doors or open to the public is
yeah,
that single question of like, can you figure out an innate need without the person directly saying it to you?
yeah,
Like every single person, like any runner on the globes could be like, yeah, can you make it lighter and bouncier and run better and be supported? Like that, you don't need to any anybody can I can you don't have to pay me to tell you that. Like you
yeah, yeah,
guys can all figure that out.
yeah,
But yeah, it's asking them questions that have nothing to do with footwear to get them to accidentally spill their guts enough for you to pick something out about how they want to feel about themselves in the future that you can
right.
then turn into a product. And and that's hard to do.
Yeah,
That's because you're searching for the background beneath the foreground. Like
mm,
somebody is speaking to you in sentences and you are searching for the veneer behind that sentence about how they're feeling to kind of find a need that they're not articulating. It's
mm,
funky. Um, and the only recommendation that I could give to be better at it is to just talk to as many people as possible and
right.
talk to them not about running.
Yeah,
Um, I think a really great example of this, I think maybe like the ultimate consumer example of this is Dyson. Love them or hate them.
yep,
They talked to so many people about about clean air and the way cleanliness made them feel, and that cleanliness slowly transitioned into like this like era of almost this like sensory deprivation tank. They were like, how do we're a vacuum company, how
mm,
do we tap into someone's like innate like spirituality that gets expressed when they're just like completely clean? And so they made like a mouth air filter with headphones. They are a vacuum company
yeah,
and they made a mouth filter with headphones. And that product actually sucked that I heard.
yeah,
But that's not the point. The
yeah,
point is that somehow through talking to people about vacuums and cleanliness, they found an innate need for an air mask and headphones. That like that product sucked. There's a PLM somewhere at Dyson that absolutely unlocked something sick.
yeah,
Like, you know what I mean? Like that's holy smoke. Imagine going into the Dyson board and being like,
yeah,
all right, yo, cleared table, headphones.
Yep.
Like, dude, what? And he got it made. So
Yeah.
there was some insight somewhere. He unlocked something. They unlocked something. Who knows?
Yeah.
Yeah, very cool.
And it could be something that ends up happening. It might not be over, you know? Like
Yeah, yeah,
someone's
yeah, yeah,
someone might be prepared to die on that hill. Like
yeah. Someone's like, okay, we need the headphone. We need a second version.
yeah. It's like we're still doing that. uh Man, you're right. Like, and that's another thing. I've been meaning to say this on this podcast. No one's going to hear it, but I'm going to say it because I might clip it. I don't know. Maybe I will. Lee touched on something that I want to make sure everyone knows. The whole footwear world knows. Because I've been trying to explain this podcast to everybody. I am not getting in. I don't want to get into any brands. I don't want to get behind the doors. You know, I'm not here to do that. Because we all know, like, we can't talk about it. We all know that. I know that. Lee knows that. Everyone I have lined up knows. Like, we're not touching that stuff. But like the theoretical, like like who a person is when they're working on this product, how that bleeds into a process, how all of this runs and operates, like the nuts and bolts, like that's what we're here to talk about. And I think like that is the secret sauce. Like a different type of brain is at A6 talking to people, probably very similar people, and distilling things. And that's their secret sauce. And like Hoka is doing the same thing. There's a brand. There's like that brain is functioning. There's a brand persona that they know they have something and they're trying to like hold it dear. And then at the same time they're talking to people, and then there's like a filter that's happening like through brand, and then through like you're trying to keep it nice and pure, but you're also talking to Hoka people who love Hoka and they're like, well, I wish it was like this, or like, and you're getting all this stuff and you're compiling it. But I'm happy that their thing is theirs, your thing is yours. All I'm interested in is talk to me like I have never heard of this before. Like, and what gets me riled up is like just hearing how it happens. And like another thing that's floating to the top is like when you're a product line manager, something about it screams to me that you have a level of empathy. You have a level of conversational aptitude. Like you have a level of like because it is like it's hard to like break barriers with people. It's hard to have anyone even care who I am or who you are, like outside, because like you sit next to someone on a plane, they have a whole life,
It's
but you
crazy.
don't care. You're like, whatever, just trying to get on a plane and get off. Like
You're like, I'm trying to not cry watching When Harry Met Sally.
yeah,
That's all I'm trying to do.
yeah, like I'll get on a plane and watch like I don't know, like a South Park episode, and I'm crying thinking about my kids. Like
Yeah,
I don't
yeah.
even like it's just like whatever, like um what I'm trying to say is like keep that out of it. What I'm talking here is like it's just like about everything you're talking about is like we define this role, like this role is so much um um I've been talking to Colin about this idea, and I've said it before, is like it feels like at some point, and let's call it some old shoe dog. Maybe it's Phil Knight. Who knows? Someone sat down and said, I want to design a shoe. And then that same person was like, well, I'm going to do the shoe and the traction. And someone came along and said, well, what color is it going to be? And you're like, oh man, I got to think about color. And someone said like, well, your athlete didn't like that. He likes this. And you're like, well, how am I going to keep up with the insights? And then someone was like, well, you got to talk to Asia and you got to develop it this way and this way and this way. And you're like, well, how am I going to, like someone at some point said, one person can't do all of this, like, and can't do it all well. like,
Yes.
like I
Yes.
need someone who knows how to talk to people, who knows, who loves the product. Obviously, I hope everyone has realized at this point, like, Lee loves this. like
I do.
understanding this person
Yeah.
and how to serve this person is in the blood. And that's like job title, job description alone, like you almost want that to be like front and center. It's hard to like even like capture that in words.
Mm.
Um because there is like a, which is you know why job interviews exist and all that, like you want to get the sense of what a person is,
Mm-hmm.
um and what they're about. But like you gotta be hungry, you know, you gotta be hungry for the, it's certainly if you want to be in Lee's position where you're talking to these elite, um very, I mean, in tune, like, I mean, when you're talking about like like the difference between feeding somebody, feeding their families and not feeding themselves and not, like it's, um you know, that's when it gets real and you need to be on your A game, so to speak. like um
Yeah, it
just kind of rambled a lot, but essentially is
well, it
what I'm
makes
saying
sense.
is I don't care brand. I want to know how it's done. Like and what makes the best one, you know, like um what, if there is a best PLM, what are they doing and how do they, like, obviously it's above board. Like I'm not asking you what someone said and how you're taking that into a product, but you know, how do you see what you do is very interesting to me, and I think interesting to people who want to get in. um
You know,
that said,
I think that's a great insight, and I
yeah,
think that's why this conversation. That's why I've really enjoyed this conversation, is because I can feel that you're interested in all of these different functions and processes. But I think adding on to what you said is there's so much space to make great things, and it's so easy to replicate and make iterations of something that's already been proven. And
right,
every brand does that in some facet, you know.
yeah,
But there's so much open space to make great things and help people. It, it should be inspiring to people that there is no best PLM. There's just
mm,
how the PLM that there's the PLM at Dyson that unlocked the breathing mask,
yeah,
or you know what I mean, or the PLM at Starlink that said, "Wait, what if I gave that dude Wi-Fi in his van?" You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like and it's like, who knows if those PLMs possess a certain like attribute that lets them unlock things from people that are much more innate and much more deep. I
right,
know that I know there's great PLMs and I know there's okay PLMs,
yep,
but I think the nice thing is that like because this job is unquantifiable to its detriment at times,
yeah,
you anybody can be great at it in their own way, which is
yeah,
thank God, dude. There's
yeah.
enough binary quantifiable jobs out there. Like
You're right,
we need some space.
yeah. And I think the same thing can be said about design as well. You know, it's like,
Totally.
yeah, I mean, I would consider myself very middle of the road, but at the
Stop it.
same,
You're good
but
as
but
hell.
but but at the same point, but in the same vein, um, you know, thank goodness for that. And I think I cannot believe that even the greatest people didn't arrive at their place from not having to grind it, grind a bit and like really not grind it, but like having to like really like get into the mud, get into
Of
the
course.
like like we see the pretty sketch, we see the pretty whatever, the end result, shoe, whatever it is, and I think we also don't see that like a lot went into it. And I think what's interesting is like now this was like lifestyle shoe stuff, and this might be an interesting thing to use. Like when I was at Pencil, I was working with Dwayne Edwards, who is like, in his own league of echelons of design,
The
he's
Godfather.
cemented himself and like, you know, cemented himself in the Rushmore, right? You got like all those
Yes.
people.
Well said.
Like he once told me, he's like, I designed one shoe, and that's it. This shoe. Like I only do it one time. I know what I have in my head. I know it's good. I design it. It's done. But there's like 30 years behind that, and him sketching and sending sketches, like when he's at like he's sketching on pieces of paper and throwing them in suggestion boxes. He's doing it. He's been doing it since he was 17, like 16, 17, like pencil sketches, just boom, 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 like sending it to people, like almost in the same realm as you are, sending, talking to every person you want to like work with, like just sending it in, like even if it's just a conversation, just like send it in. So what I'm trying to say is like, we don't arrive. I don't think anyone arrives at greatness without, taking a risk, and then taking lots of risks and then constantly working to be better at what they're doing.
Absolutely.
Anyway,
well said. Well said.
Well, we're sitting at an hour and 20.
We did it.
It's been pretty great. I won't ask you to do this, but I think if I ever, we might, might have you on another time, but, I think I'm like trying to figure out like what are the 1, 2, 3 of like most needed skills as a product line manager. 1, 2, 3, top 3. Like, I've kind of done it for design. I'm like almost in the point of like revising that a little bit, because I think it changes based on the level at the same time. The deeper you get, I think the more is expected. So I don't think like what I'm thinking of for like an entry level, it's not the same as, that senior role or where you're really expecting a depth that's only arrived at through time.
Yeah.
And thinking, in
it's a
journey.
journey.
What we've done here, like when you first started talking, like reflection, like on your career and like your growth and like, man, but it almost just feels like, like I feel like at some point there should be this like, hey, if you want to be a product line manager, entry level, like, boom, 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 like,
that's a good question.
That could easily be a conversation for another day, but,
no, I think it's a fun,
yeah.
I haven't thought about that at all. And I just think it'd be fun to stack up the 3 that everybody says. It's interesting. I think it would, communication in no order, in no specific order. Communication, empathy, and goes back to the conductor analogy where you just gotta know when everybody's playing the right music. You
Right.
gotta know when to ask design development to stop. You know,
Hmm.
it's so easy to overbuild and
Yep.
oversell and over communicate. And I think when that happens, you give the consumer this like excessive mess, this
Yep.
very extreme example. I think restraint is one of the hardest things in the entire world. And it all comes from you just gotta know when the music gets played right, when to
Right.
when to cut it.
Mm. Mm.
Right though? You like
That's
you have an eye. You know what I'm talking about.
yeah. I thought you were gonna go like with an eye of like um just like taste. I think
Mm,
like, and I think you know it comes with like, I think this is an aesthetic field in a lot of ways. I don't think it's an aesthetic field for like track spikes. I
hey,
think
you're
what
right. You're right. You're
I
right.
think what John has done, yeah, I see Nike, I it is in that sense. But
Yeah.
if you're making a tool, I feel like
Yeah.
all bets off. You know what I'm saying? But if you're
It,
doing like
yeah.
the shoe that's supposed to be on 1,000,000 feet, like it kind of
Yeah.
it becomes a very aesthetic play as much as it is a tech, as much as it is a fit and feel. Um, and I think there is a bit of that. Um, so
Yeah.
I was like, that's where I think he was like, oh, like an eye. I was like, yeah, yeah, yeah. But I think there is like the eye of restraint is, um, because you like we could keep going and going and going and going and going. We can
Yeah.
keep.
Oh, forever. Oh, you
It's
could
a moment in time, like each shoe. Yeah, like
you could spin, dude. You spin, and then
yeah,
you give the consumer just a mess of all the coolest trends and all the coolest colors, and you
yeah,
sell it to them with all the coolest words and all the coolest marketing material, and it's just loud. It's just noise,
right,
and it's like, why why do Milwaukee tools look so good? Because there's nothing to them.
right.
They're just beautiful chrome sculptures.
Yeah,
They aren't overdone with psychotic rubber handles in different colors and all
yeah,
these different accessories at the hammer. It's simply just pure restrained tool. And I think that restraint is aesthetic as much as trend and excess are aesthetic,
yeah,
but yeah, gotta have an eye to know when to stop, man. Gotta know when
yeah.
to stop.
I think everybody in the triad needs to have a little bit of that.
Easier said than done.
Yeah, for sure. Um, so communication, I agree. Like that's huge. You said a middle one, and then I got restrained.
Empathy, which is the
Oh
easy,
yeah,
which
yeah.
is like, I would be blown away if somebody found themselves in this role and didn't have empathy. It's
Hmm.
almost an innate value because, like, this job at some point is you're in the service industry, you're serving
Hmm.
the consumer. You have to care about them, and they're like, you're not going to find out an innate need if you don't care about their well-being. like,
Right.
like it would be wild if you found yourself here and you didn't have some sort of empathy for the person you're making products for. But that might go for the entire triad. Like, why are you
Yeah.
here?
Yeah.
And
Yeah. I think that's one thing that caught me off guard going into Brooks
mm,
and specifically into Run, because so much of it I just thought like I am here to make the best looking thing, not realizing that there is a person that needs, like, a very real person who has a need. Um, I think that had to be, I had to channel a bit of that. And it definitely caught me off guard because my only experience was a very different Audi, like, it was very aesthetic, like
mm,
very, um, performance, and then I was working with like I was at Pencil working with like baseball, you know, so it's like a very like, you know, athletic, gritty, you know, and it's like hitting the face with something that looks sick on the field, you know, like boom. And I, you know, moving in, you know, it wasn't even in my nature to think about subduing. Like it's not even in like it's not in the, it's not there, or thinking about, um, like a familiarity that running has that some people are looking for in a product that you can't sacrifice in any way, like, or it won't be purchased, you know, like,
Yeah.
um,
Temperamental bunch.
yeah,
Temperamental bunch. And it's very strange to go from your product's value being its beauty to your product's value being its function.
yeah,
And uh, there being a set function that you can't deviate from.
yeah,
Because people are so, they tie the shoe, especially in running, the shoe is so tied to health and injury. There's such an identity aspect. That's such a, man, I bet that was a curveball for you.
yeah. It is. But that's why I was like, so when we started like Footwear 101, I was like, the service industry equivalent
Mm-hmm.
of footwear. So like, you know, food service.
Yeah.
The food service equivalent for me is like, go work in running for 5 years, and then you're going to learn that no one gives a crap about your aesthetic. You know, no one gives two craps about, you know, what you think, you know, like, because I think designers get this mindset of like, well, I am like the piece that matters, the aesthetic that matters. And then you walk into a fleet and no one gives two crap. Like no one cares. And then you have to be better because you're a professional in a job. Like, and so like, that's why I'm like, yeah, if you want to be able to go somewhere and know how to create for anybody, like a lot of people want to go to Nike. I get it. It's cool, but understand that there's going to be some rules and you better be ready to like figure them out. Like it's not going to be you and your own footwear brand, like like creating your aesthetic that you take to the market. Like it is very much like, this is a profession, this is a brand, there's billions of dollars here. It's not saying fall in line because we want people to be creative,
Of course.
but I understand you're gonna jump into a bucket that needs a certain thing, and you need to like fall into that. And so it's like very much like, you know, waitressing. Like it's very much like, you know, go push some carts for a little bit. You know, like if you want to be upper management of the grocery store, like push the carts in. You know, like
you gotta know what it's like to ring the groceries. 100. I mean,
yeah,
it's anybody. It's like you're gonna join a brand that has an identity that is already established. And it's like, that's difficult. That was difficult for me to hear. It's difficult for a creative designer to hear. It's difficult for anybody to hear. But I think when you can put the ego aside and realize that, like, there's still every product that you guys especially create has room to be beautiful in its own way.
Yeah.
And I think it's likely, I mean, I have never designed a shoe, so I can't speak to this. But I imagine it's immensely satisfying when you play ball and play in the ring you're supposed to play in, and you have such a firm grasp of the fundamentals of design that you can take something that needs to be understood and still make it beautiful. Like, that is so much more satisfying than designing in a silo where no one else is involved.
Yeah.
I mean, that's yeah, it's gotta be huge.
It is immensely satisfying, Lee.
Right? Like when you crush it, like knowing that there was 30 cooks in the kitchen and you were designing the 14th iteration of the shoe. Like, and when it's good, oh my goodness. That feeling's likely unmatched.
Yeah. And it happens in a crunch time situation,
Of course.
which can be really tough. The best feeling for me is when you hit it immediately, like
Yeah.
you're that in tune, like boom, like that's the difference. Like that is what Lee just said right there is the difference between like wanting to be a footwear designer and becoming like the footwear
Mm.
designer. It's like that's when you have arrived. And that's what I'm saying. Like when you pick a job like Performance Run, probably cleated, probably all these other jobs that are very specific,
Mm.
and then you can still create in those and create well. That's what this job's about. And you listen to
Well
Lee.
said.
You listen, you get the brief. Hopefully, most people are doing the Lee, giving you a Lee brief, like,
It's a little weirder.
yeah.
It's for those that don't know what Jake's saying. My briefs on PowerPoint have a lot of the transition sounds, like breaking glass
Oh,
and gunshots and things like that. So every time there's a new slide, I give you a little bit of that
little,
spice,
little pop.
a little pop,
Um,
a little pop.
Lee's also Lee's the only product line manager with the guts to call me out in the middle of a meeting.
Oh yeah,
And
Jake was not paying
I
attention.
that is oof.
I'll
Look,
never forget that. That was funny.
look, that's fine. It was great. But like you're lucky I'm not like now like where I've arrived now.
Oh yeah, we don't do that to like director or senior
Yeah.
Jake. We don't do that.
I'm like I'm like
Be careful.
I'm gonna have a couple words with a couple people above him. uh,
Oh, I like that. I like that.
but nah, man, it's the best. Fond memories,
Fond memories.
for sure.
Fond memories.
Um, man, I think that's a great place to stop. I mean,
Cool.
I could keep picking your brain all day, but maybe
Yeah,
those are
love talking to
maybe
you.
maybe better saved for another product line manager from somewhere else. Um,
Totally, totally.
um, but yeah, man. Well, another again, just it's a masterclass. I'm still thinking about what the universe presents you. Like, when you said that, like, oh man,
That
I'll
got
be
me.
thinking about that for a while. Yeah,
Well, thank you for the prompts and thanks for the
yeah,
convo, man. It was I think it's really rare. I don't get a lot of chances to like reflect, and this was a great reflection. It made me feel excited about my role, and I feel honored that you would invite me to chat. We had a
yeah,
great time. Thank you.
yeah. I think this is what it's about, and I hope it. You know, I've been thinking like, how long does this last? And I'm like, maybe 2-3 years. Like
Oh, you
I think
can't,
we
don't
can
think
all
about
talk
it
about this for a little while and then
until you
exhaust the muscle and move
until
on.
you talk to every single person in the industry, and then there's just no more people.
Yeah. Or we just start back at it again and
Yeah.
then we just go back to the first guy.
I kind of like that.
But no, well, thanks, Lee.
Thanks, Jake.
Awesome. I think hopefully again as I put these episodes out, like hopefully this episode again will give the courage that most like other people need to come on. So we have a very seasoned designer and Daniel Shirley's coming on now. We have a very seasoned, knowledgeable product line manager in Lee who's come on. Believe me that this is fun. And these conversations are only serving each other. Like what's crazy is like we're all competitive. Like I'm competitive with Lee, like in
Of
some
course.
strange product land. Like like we are technically competitive, but I still think that there is a conversation needs to change in the footwear industry where we can all sit down and talk, and it doesn't matter whether it's Jordan Brand or New Balance, like how you interpret your role is helpful to everybody in and out of footwear. And we don't have to talk about the confidentials to like have meaningful conversation. I believe that. And that's why tech packs are due. It's like a universal, everyone knows what it's about. If you're inside this world. Yeah. All right. Well, let's call it.
Well said.
Let's rest up.
Let's rest up.
Tomorrow's another day.
I appreciate you committing the blasphemy of having a PLM on your design show.
Yeah. Well, that was another thing I was going to get to that I didn't want to. It's like, talk about the negative connotations of
Yeah, you save that for the next PLM. You save that for him.
Yeah. Well, I would like. Oh man, we might have a round 2 at some point.
Yeah, if he gives you if they give you a bad answer, you circle back with me. We'll figure it out.
Address the. Well, now that when I open that up, like now people are wondering. I'm like, okay, we'll leave it on the table. Sorry, world. Like you'll get to hear more about that.
That's just a tidbit.
That's behind the paywall.
That's behind the paywall.
Oh man. Well, anyway, it's a great episode. Like and subscribe to the podcast. Come back. We will keep this going. I will not stop until all the conversations are had about this awesome career. Awesome to be around this product. It's fortunate to do it. So, okay. Let's call it. See you next time.
Cheers.